amazing content, people, and amazing stories so you don't have to.
Pay attention, you're going to learn something for a change.
This is a show about all of those things and much, much more.
You're blowing my mind right now. I hope someone's recording this.
So settle in, pour a cup of amazing coffee. He's a coffee snob, by the way. Crank that ghetto blaster and enjoy the 150,000 ranked podcast in the land.
Fake laugh, hiding real pain.
I think that's an exaggeration. It's the Brenton On Tour Podcast.
Any question?
Here's BD.
Holy moly, it's an episode. Hey friends, what's going on? It's your pal Brent, back for another episode of the Brenton On Tour Podcast, making it series. Been a couple of weeks, but that's what happens when you travel like I do, when you're running shows. It's travel madness over here, like I touched on a couple of weeks ago. Just the airport craziness and all the stuff that's been going on. I'm in Stockholm, Sweden right now. Supposed to be in Bergen, Norway. Doing a castle. Flight gets canceled. Tour goes on to do another show. They're coming back here, so I decided to come here. Delays. It just never ends right now. And if you're thinking about traveling, like I said a couple of weeks ago, 3 hours, give yourself as much time as humanly possible. It is a gong show out here for travel. Almost every band and person that I know in a band or involved in a band is out here in Europe right now playing shows, and they're all going through the same thing. It's crazy, and but the music industry is clawing back, and we're here, and we're doing shows, we're doing concerts, and doing all the rest of it. So you're just gonna have to be patient as I bang these episodes out. I'm not quite on the weekly pace that I was, but my guest this week, I've been trying to lock down for a couple of weeks. We've been trying to connect for a couple of weeks. And schedule's getting away. He's a busy guy. And of course I'm out busy as well right now. So we finally were able to make it happen in Stockholm, Sweden, of all places. Pete Lesperance has been a part of my world since I would say 1990, 1991. He doesn't really know that part of it, but we have roots in the same city. Speaking of making it, he is and was in one of the biggest Canadian rock bands around the world globally, and would always come into the store that I was working at, and it was a whole thing about it. And I just remember hearing the stories of him playing around the world and things like that when we were, I was like, I don't know, how old was I? 15, 16 years old or something at Long and McQuaid in Oshawa, Ontario. And just thinking to myself, man, what a time at that age when I was trying to get into music and thinking about making it as a career, and hearing these stories about him playing around the world and all the rest of it. It was quite inspiring, and we're finally going to get a chance to sit down and talk about it so I can ask him whether he's made it or not. So please welcome to the show, from Smoke and Ashes and Harem Scarem, my old pal, Pete Lesperance. How are you, buddy? What's going on?
Hey, Brent. How goes, man?
It's been a long time, dude, and good to see you. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, man.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. We were talking a little bit before we went on, but just about our history and some of the things like that. If you're from Oshawa, Ontario, which is a suburb outside of Toronto, thriving music scene at one point. I'm not sure if it is anymore. You'd have to tell me. But there was so many bands coming out of that time. When I first heard of Pete and then first met Pete, I was working at Long McQuaid Music in Oshawa. Hi, Paulo and all the guys over there. How you doing? Right. And I was, first brought in as like an intern through high school, and then was able to get a job there. And this guy would come in, once every couple of weeks, play some guitars. Your drummer, Darren, would come in. I think we even had his kit set up, and I'm a drummer. So it was like, and you guys would come in. And the whole store would stop. And this was the time when rock stars were now there's not as much access, right? Or now there's way more access. Back then there was no access to rock stars per se. Metal Edge magazine, Hit Parader, those kind of things is where you got your information. But when you work at a music store, the local rock stars would come in, and there was no bigger band from Canada nationally around the world, like, metal band at that time, in that sort of like out of the late 80s, early 90s, than Harem Scarem. You guys were huge in Japan. You did great business in Canada. It was the time of the music videos, so you had these great videos, and it was very inspiring to me, because at that point it was like I was looking at getting into the music industry. And I had Wembley. That was right when Freddie Mercury died. I remember there was like the Wembley show and all these things. And then you guys would come in and talk about playing these venues. And it was just such a thing. So I've been wanting to talk to you about your version of making it, which we'll get into. But here you are. I appreciate the time. Welcome to the Brenton On Tour Podcast. Tell everybody who the hell you are, Pete, and thanks for coming on, man.
Well, my name's Pete Lesperance. I am currently one half of the country duo Smoke and Ashes with Aaron Allen, a fellow Canadian country artist. There's Aaron right there. So that's Aaron and I, and that's our band Smoke and Ashes. We started putting out singles last summer. We have another one coming out on July 8th, and we're putting the band together, and we're actually going to go out and do a bunch of playing. So that is kind of where I'm at personally with my music right now. I'm also working on some solo stuff as well, some solo country stuff, believe it or not. So I'll add that to the pile, because it's just, why not do more all the time, do more. So we're working on that stuff. The Harem Scarem thing is on hiatus right now. Harry and I were looking at doing another record, and we just basically don't have it right now. We don't have it in us. So there's no point making a record if we're not loving the idea. And I'm super focused on the other stuff I'm doing. And Harry's very focused on his mastering, and he's still producing stuff. He's got a lot going on right now as well. So Harem Scarem is backburnered, if not completely defunct. So we'll see. I mean, that's not really the plan. We just want to wait until we're inspired to do it again.
Yeah.
So anyway, I derailed myself there, but yeah, I'm a producer. I'm a multi-instrumentalist. I play on all kinds of country stuff, I'm all over Canadian, country, whatever, radio, satellite radio, playing with a bunch of artists here, doing, playing on their stuff, and part of the Sharp 9 music team.
Are you writing with other artists now too? Like, I mean, I know you've always been a part of that, and you've produced, and you and Harry have been part of producing some of our friends' bands like Gary Begner and those guys. And so are you still producing and writing for other artists, whether it be country or rock, or are you really just focused on this right now?
Yeah, no, I'm still doing that. I just produced an artist named Quentin Blair, a brand new country track called $20 Bottle that's out now. And had a lot of fun with that. Yeah, doing a bunch of production work on as well, doing a bunch of playing for different producers. Like I was saying, I'm part of a group of producers called Sharp 9. It's Bill Miller is our manager, and he manages us collectively as a group of producers. And where was I going with that?
Yeah, it's just about writing and songwriting, and and working with other artists. Because I am fascinated, because I had Diesel on there a couple of weeks ago, and he's in that country space, and I know a bunch of country people, in that space, and it's quite the competitive business, like everything in the music industry. I understand, but what is that transition for you to go from, rock band, big ass guitar solos, or a big ass arena rock, the image thing, and producing those kind of records and focusing that, and then having to switch over and produce new artists and learn the method for country? Because I think people think you just play and you just go, but there really is sort of a bit of a, there seems to be a bit of a I don't want to say theme, but they're production wise, like you gotta keep up with the rest of them. You know what I mean? There has to be some kind of like trend, thing to learn about how to produce a country track properly. So what was that transition like between the two, sides of it?
It was kind of a long process, to tell you the truth. It didn't really feel like an overnight transition or anything. I started playing country oh God, I don't even know now, probably just over 10 years ago, I really started getting into it. And frankly, it was because I was completely bored with a lot of rock music. And
Yeah.
I didn't really listen to a lot of music. I wasn't really into guitar that much anymore. I wasn't practicing as much as I used to. And then I got turned on to this guitar player named Doug Seven, and he did a bunch of instructional stuff, and it was country. And it was all chicken picking and super clean and friggin' hard, and it reminded me of when I was a kid when I was learning guitar again. I went, this is amazing. It totally got my attention from a guitar perspective. And musically, I mean, I was always into stuff like the Eagles. My dad was a huge country fan, so I've got there's a giant country repertoire in my head. And I guess I drew from that without even knowing it. Went out and played with Michelle Wright I did a big 6-week tour thing with her up here. So that was my first foray into playing live country and really kind of getting into it. And thank you, Michelle, for that. And so it just kind of went from there. I started working with Jeff Delzeel a lot. And he, was producer of the year a few years in a row, more than a few, 3, 4, I'm not sure anymore. But so, and I've been just playing on his stuff forever, which obviously I'm listening to country. I'm, really focused on it. And frankly, it's just time for me. I don't listen to rock music. And that's just, I know it's a sad truth. A lot of people are going to think I'm a dick for saying that, but I don't listen to rock music. I don't really listen to a ton of music, period. But I definitely don't listen to rock music. And country just feels age appropriate to me. And I mean that in the best of ways. Like, I feel like I can keep doing what I'm doing now until I can't do it anymore. So
what's your definition of rock right now? Because to not listen to rock, because there's a lot of it, but there's also different definitions of what that means now, because rock has taken so many forms. Like if you go on Apple's playlist, or you go on Apple Music and then type in rock as a category, I mean, there is like this real heavy mix of bands that are like, some would consider not rock. It's like, Modest Mouse is mixed with the new Ozzy track that's mixed with Imagine Dragons, that's mixed with a new Slash song. So they've kind of jumbled the whole thing in together. You go to the hard rock section and it's full on hard rock. You go to the country section and it's just on its own. So it's very interesting to me how people are defining it. Is there something about rock right now that's not speaking to you? Are you just finding nothing creative with rock right now? Or are you just finding it kind of like, I'm over it, I've been there, I want to try something new? Or this is just a space that I'm comfortable in right now?
I think it's deeper than that for me on some level. I've discovered over the years, and I was a huge music fan in the beginning, obviously, and I love great music. I love great songs. I love when music moves me. I'll cry at a sappy ballad if the lyric is right or whatever. But that's not the point. But as far as music is not really something that I take part in on a listening kind of level anymore. It's something I do. I've always got something to do. I've learned a bunch of new instruments. I'm playing all kinds of, I'm always trying to improve on those things. I'm one of those guys. I still practice like a lunatic, frankly. If you ask my wife, I still practice crazy amount of time. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning just to put time into the instrument before I actually get to work, So music is something I do. It's not something I experience. So if I'm not doing it, I'm not all that interested. And frankly, even with my own stuff, once I'm done it, I'm not that interested either.
It's like a movie. It's like somebody that makes a movie and then they don't want to watch the movie anymore. It's like, I don't want to see.
It's always been that way. We've always finished records and then you never want to hear them again for a while because you've heard them so much. And like I said, it's really not a spectator sport for me. Music is kind of a do it or, I see so many shows. I was speaking to, you might know Ray Legier from Korn, drummer from Korn. I do not know.
He played with David Lee Roth forever, but he's with Korn now, and they've got just a monster record that they put out, which is really great. But I had a chance to see them in a small club in Italy a couple of weeks ago, and Ray's going to come on the show in a couple of days, I think. But we were sitting there shooting the shit, and we were talking about Jonathan from Korn, because people are like, oh, you're in a metal band, you must listen to metal all the time. And Monkey, the guitar player from Korn, who's a fantastic dude, is like, that guy doesn't listen to any metal or rock at all. He only listens to new wave. He only listens to like he loves The Cure and he loves Depeche Mode and all that kind of stuff. And I think people just assume it's like, oh, you're in Harem Scarem, so you must love Poison and Warrant, and you must love all those, and Skid Row and all those bands, or you're in a country band and you must love, this, but people's tastes just take them all over the place. They happen to write music that speaks to them, but maybe they don't listen to that genre. It's very interesting to me because I did tour with Korn a couple years ago, and Jonathan said, people think we're a metal band, but we're actually a funk band. And I love new wave. And when you listen to them like that, moving forward, knowing that they're funk mixed with new wave, you'll never listen to the band the same way, because Jonathan spins his lyrics like a Cure song. It's quite something to discover. So you, as a consummate musician who's always trying to learn new things and up your and you're already a monster guitar player, like what do you want to learn more of?
Everything.
You know what I mean?
Everything, man. Over the last bunch of years, I've learned everything you see behind me. I play banjo, I play dobro, I play pedal steel. Will be the death of me. I'm playing that now, and that will probably be the last I'll go out playing that one, because that's going to be a long road. But I just love it all. I just love making sound. Like adding new sounds to the tapestry of whatever you're doing. I mean, as a producer, it really made sense to me. And I mean, again, I'm hungry for this stuff. I want to learn all the time, whether it's production, mixing, because I'm doing it all, right? And I love it all. And there's no part of it that I want to hand off to anybody, because I love doing it. So even when I'm producing stuff, I'll usually farm out the drums and bass. And other than that, I'm playing, if it's an artist and not a band, I'm playing all the stringed instruments, because I like to do that. And it usually turns out the way people are happy. And that's kind of what I'm doing right now. So
your foray into, I'm going to go backwards a little bit here to the Harem Scarem thing, and as we move closer to the making it idea. What's the history of Pete? Born and raised, where were you born and raised? But Harem Scarem kind of became like an Oshawa band. But what is the actual history behind that rise of that band?
Well, I was born in Scarborough, and then I moved to Oshawa when I was like 6 months old. My parents bought a house there in South Oshawa, and I lived there until I was 27. So during that time, I played in one other band, a metal band called Minotaur, that I started with my best friend at the time. When we were 8 years old. So funny enough.
Jeez, Minotaur?
I started
Minotaur?
I started playing when I was 8. I think Kevin and I started playing. He was the singer in Minotaur. He passed away a few years ago. Almost a couple of years ago now. But we started Minotaur when we were about 9-10 years old, playing like, Eagles stuff, like really, the easy stuff, the typical stuff everybody was playing back then. And then we found Iron Maiden, and we totally got into the metal thing around grade 9 when that started. So anyway, I'm making it a longer story than it needs to be. We played around Oshawa a lot. We won the Battle of the Bands. We were little kids, but we were pretty focused on what we were doing. We were playing bars. We went out with Anvil, the band Anvil.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, we went out with Anvil. We used to have to get notes from our parents so we could go and play these bars. And we literally would go on tour for like a month, 2 months at a time, all across Canada, or mostly Quebec and Ontario with Anvil. As 16, 17-year-old kids. Like, it was complete insanity. Our parents, I don't know what they were thinking, but they let us do it. Yeah. So that was kind of fun. And that was Oshawa. So we were a real Oshawa band at that time anyway. I left that band to join Harry in Harem Scarem around, we started Harem Scarem, I guess it was around 1989. Oh, there we are. Hair Farmers, the bunch of us.
There you go.
Yeah, around 1989, I guess we started the band. Harry was looking to just go out and get a record deal, basically. And I was kind of done doing what we were doing in the Minotaur situation. And I just wanted to go out and do that, get a record deal and go play our own songs. I had no interest in playing covers. It was just, let's take the most direct way. We did a CD demo. As far as I know, we did the first CD demo in Canada.
Oh, really?
What's that? Sorry?
Really? The first one?
Our manager at the time happened to work at Sinram, and he took our demo in overnight, and he unbeknownst to Sinram, he pressed it up, and we had like 500 CD demos, and that was pretty impressive at the time for the labels. Like I said, around 89. So we went in and we played it for Warner. We played for a bunch of people. We got Warner interested, and then Warner came out, saw us in Oshawa at the Rock Connection, and signed us. And that was kind of how that started. And that was 90 maybe by then. And we did our first, the debut came out in 91.
How did you guys battle through the stigma of Canadian bands, which still exists? Well, it was an interesting one because, we were pummeled with American bands at that point. Anyone from 89 on. So it would have been, obviously the Poisons, the Warrants, the Cinderella, all those kind of bands that were on the Q107 top 10 of 10, which was our audio Bible really back then. It was kind of like what was in the top 10. There you go. And people are like, well, why did Rat not break in Canada? So, well, they weren't really on the top 10 of 10 very much. Like if Q107 said it so, then that's where it was
at the time.
And
that's
at
true,
the time. Right. And then 97.7 comes along and starts playing killer stuff and all the rest of it.
Station back then.
Yeah. So, but there was this stigma about Canadian bands, which still, I mean, has kind of split off now because of the rise of Canadian pop acts, like The Weeknd and Avril and all these bands that kind of blew
bands,
that blew up that are Canadian, Drake, all the rest of it, regardless, Nickelback, all that stuff. But at the time, at the late 80s and 90s, man, there wasn't a lot of you. There was you. I mean, if I remember correctly, as far as international success, it was probably just you. I don't even think Slick Toxic got to where you guys got to. So it was you guys. But if I can remember that time, it was like you guys, maybe Slick Toxic, Haywire, but they wouldn't have, they were kind of minorly there.
Well, that's the thing. Most of those bands they were home bands. You know what I mean? Like they had their success here. And frankly, we were jealous of that at the time, which is so funny,
right.
We wanted that so bad, because we just never felt that we got to where we wanted to be in Canada, right? Like, God, that plagued us our whole fucking career.
But you know what? You guys, I think, focused on the international thing because, but I think, again, I think about that today too, because like Danko, for instance, Danko isn't as big in Canada as he is. He just did, 50,000 people, as part of the festival. Over here, he's massive over here, but in Canada, it's he does well. So there is this sort of funny thing about Canadian bands that kind of like, and then in that genre, which was super competitive at the time. But thankfully we had much music and all the rest of it. You guys had great videos, and I find it funny because you wanted to have the hometown success, but I'm sure all of those bands, Sven Gali, all those guys were dying to have the success that you guys had in Japan and things like that. You know what I mean? Where you go and sell out, whatever. Did you guys do Budokan? Have you guys done? What was the biggest show? What was the biggest show you guys did over there? Yeah,
the biggest thing we do. Like I think the first time there was a great club called Club Cheetah, and I think it was, I can't remember if it was 9,000 or 10,000. We sold out 3 nights there.
Yeah. So all those bands, I
can't remember.
Me as the young fan, I'm like, me as the young fan, I'm going like, well, sure, like, Slick Toxic can do the, they could only do the Warehouse or something, or I'm saying no one got to massive status, but you guys were the ones touring around the world. You guys would come in along with Quaid, and it would be like, you did what? You just played with who? You played with a giant festival? It's very interesting to me. And I'm seeing the festivals right now over here. Like Lee Aaron just came over. Honeymoon Suite is over here.
That's great. We were supposed to do Sweden Rock before we were supposed to do Sweden Rock the year of the COVID thing.
That's what they just played. They just played it. I'm in Sweden now. It's so funny that she was just here, but it's such an interesting thing to me that like Lee Aaron's another one that was big in Canada, but she actually did pretty well internationally. So
she did,
I find it very interesting about just that time, because now every act has an opportunity to be an international star.
Yeah.
Every act, people don't really get to the geographically. It's like, cool, we're from Canada, but that people are now, it's like if it blew up on TikTok or if it blew up on something, then it doesn't matter where you're from. People are just coming to see it.
Yeah, it's international, man. There's artists coming from all over the place. My daughter goes and sees bands that she's fallen in love with online because of TikTok, whatever, and they come and they play here, and they're playing for 1,000, 2,000 people. They've never been here. It's amazing. It's quite incredible how fast shit gets popular these days. It's quite something.
My question to you though is what getting back to the rock side, and like, not necessarily watching, there's a dog there, that's nice, not necessarily watching all the rock, but what's the plan for the new generation of these bands? Because I'm feeling like a lot of this stuff that's breaking doesn't necessarily guarantee a hard ticket. So they're breaking, but they're like the fourth band on a festival, or they're doing that one club run or one arena run, and then it's out because people's attention span is gone and they're not doing full records or something like that. When you guys like when Scarem tours now, and then we'll get into Smoke and Ashes in a minute because country's a different side of it. But when Scarem plans a tour now, I mean, how do you sustain expenses? How do you sustain being able to afford to do it? I'm sure you have a bottom, like a nut that you have to meet just to make it worth your while to get out.
Of course.
But not everybody can walk into, not walk on to Donington or walk on to a big festival still, like Sweden Rock, with the cachet that you guys have. So how do you do it now in 2022?
Well, I think we're just in a position where we're fortunate enough that we've been around long enough that people are still willing to all together, like, obviously on a tour, as you know, right, you got, your anchor gigs that are the big gigs and the big money gigs and all that's great. But then you've got a week in between. So you fill it up with the shitty gigs or the cheaper gigs or whatever you want to call them. And you just make it work in the end. And I don't know how any bands do it, frankly. I mean, like I said, I feel we're fortunate because there's still a promoter over there, or promoters over in Europe and Japan. And last time I think we went to the Philippines as well. And like, there's still people that will bring us over and pay us what we need to get paid to make it happen. And honestly, I don't know how this works for other people, Brent. Yeah. I don't know how anyone's making a living in the music industry. Frankly, I'm just happy to be where I am and doing what I'm doing at this point. Like, I really don't know. I don't know. It's a mess. And it's as much dumb luck or a good, bad idea. Like something blows up on TikTok and you're famous. I don't fucking like, I
worry about like, okay, so over here right now is, I'm out with Imagine Dragons, but the Chili Peppers are over here. Metallica's over here. Guns N' Roses are over here. Coldplay, everyone's doing stadiums. And then there's the next level. And I'm looking at this going, well, who is going to do a stadium now? That's not pop. What's the next rock act that's going to do and take over for this? Like Guns N' Roses.
What's the next one that deserves it?
Well, that's the thing, right?
I don't know.
And so
maybe,
it's
right? Like,
it's so interesting to me to like
music, like make fucking great music, make it undeniable, do shit that your fans go crazy for. If you don't, fuck you. You don't have a chance, like. That's really what it comes down to, man. Just be as good or better than everyone else or different than everyone else. I don't know the answer. Like, I do the making of the music, and I try to do everything I can, from the writing to the producing and the playing, to make sure it's as good as it can. But man, when that shit walks out the door, that's someone else's department, I'm afraid, we work in conjunction. I work in conjunction with radio people, and we're doing specific things for specific projects. Sometimes we're just doing art with the big A, right? For the sake of the art, whatever. It depends on the artist. But, as far as any kind of roadmap of how this is working out there for people now, man, I am not the guy to ask.
As we get into Smoke and Ashes and the things that you've been up to with them, and sort of basically in essence launching a new band, and trying to go through that. I don't want to ask you if you've made it yet, but what I do want to ask you is, how does Pete Lesperance define making it? Because everyone has their definition of making it and what their version of making it is. I don't want Pete to answer this as, has Pete Lesperance made it? But what is your definition of making it?
Well, I think realistically, with my age / experience and everything that I've kind of just been through in my career, I think I can look at it a little more objectively at this point and go, well, I think making it is being able to live a life that you want to live, to not have to, and I mean, again, right, this sounds fucking hoity-toity or whatever, but like, to not have to do things every single day that you don't want to do. Like, I feel, I'm appreciative of the life I have. I'm appreciative of the fact that I sit here and I make music with people, and I talk to my friends, and I'm on FaceTime with my producer buddies all day long. And like, this is what I do. And it's amazing. And I guess that's, to me, that is kind of what it's all about, right? I mean, it's whatever you do, whatever gets you there, you know what I mean? Whatever gives you that feeling. It's not for everybody. Not everybody would love to sit in their basement on a beautiful sunny day. I don't even know if the sun's out, you know what I mean?
We've done 2 years. We've done 2 years inside. So
exactly. That's and that's so true. And that's another thing, right? When you go, well, you can get through that like the way I did, and I'm okay.
Yeah, it's interesting because with this time of shutdown, with our business has not really ever had an opportunity to shut down like this.
Yeah.
Music kept being made, but the live shows and all the rest of it shut down. And so we never really have had a break like this in so long that it's almost welcomed to that point. So it's interesting, but it also gave people an opportunity to think about what it is that they wanted to do with the rest of their life coming out of this thing and going, yeah, I'm not happy with this shit. I'm going to move to and do something else. So it's been a very interesting kind of time for people. I'm seeing it out here. Word of advice: when you do get ready to go back on tour, call me. I'll tell you about the mess that's going on over here and the supplies and the travel and all the crazy. But yes, the whole business shut down, and in turn, the whole business is now short-staffed. Right. And suppliers are short. Everything is short everywhere. So people have decided to do something else with their life, and in turn, every business is shut down. It's been crazy. So crazy. So keeping with that thing, then I have to ask the question: has Pete Lesperance made it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. How could I say no? Of course, just by my own version of what that is. I mean, I like what I do. I love my life. I love my family. I love, I love what I do, and I love making music. And I make music with a ton of great people, meeting new ones all the time. Always, everything's expanding, making more music, leaving more of the legacy of whatever the fuck that is. And yeah, man, I couldn't be happier.
That's awesome. And congrats to that, because it's been you have to work at it your whole career, and you have to get to that space where you're doing what you love for a living. And it's a lot of sacrifice, a lot of time away, a lot of trying to make it, quote unquote, by everyone's definition. What was the point? Let's go to Scarem for a minute. What was the point where you were like, I think I can do this for a living now? Like, I think I'm done having to find another job. I think we can make a career at this, and we are now making a career at this, and I don't have to do anything else. Did that happen early, or was that later in the career?
No, I would say it was definitely far later. I mean, things were good and they got better, but to be totally honest, like, by our second record, I was on welfare.
Interesting. So, and how many records how many albums did the first record sell?
Oh, I don't even know, to tell you the honest to God truth. I think we were just ducking under gold in Canada.
Yeah, which is 50,000.
And I couldn't even tell you worldwide. I really don't. I've never been a numbers guy. Like, I don't pay attention, to tell you the honest to God truth.
Isn't that interesting though? It's interesting to me that, and I think people need to hear this, that, in a time of selling records, which is not this time, but in a time of selling records, and you guys were just under gold. I think eventually it went gold and beyond. You were on welfare going into the second album.
Yeah. And that was, I mean, I don't know that I don't know that anything's any better now. Like, things are still so tough for people, if not tougher. I can't even imagine, at least then there was a path you could follow. And if you were really good, there was a gatekeeper that would probably let you in if you were going in the right direction. You know what I mean? That's kind of the road we followed. The standard, find the A&R person that loves you. And, now, yeah, you can do all that, but you have to do everything on your own. And then you have to do something exceptional, and you have to do something exceptional. And then there has to be an angle, and that angle has to have a hook. It's endless. Like, it really is. It's just, there's so many ways. It's the Wild West, which is kind of great in a way, because if there's people that are really driven and focused and want to make shit happen, well, now's the time. Hey, and if you don't, go do something else. Like, really, it's, no one had it given to them. We did a lot of stupid, crazy things back then. We gave up a lot of shit, and people want to just be famous overnight now. Like, it's pretty ridiculous, some of the attitudes on, on some people.
There's so many options for them now, right? You don't have to work as hard, because it's like, well, if I just got to go viral one time, and then I'm set. And it's really put an urgency level down, like a notch. And even bands that are like, get in the van and go. You can't get your gold record in Canada unless you've been across in January, February, and March. And if you're not willing to do that, because you're just going to hang out and wait for you to go viral, then that's my problem with where the music industry is going to struggle, is that are kids willing to get in the van?
I don't think they are.
Are they willing?
I'm sure some probably are, but I don't think that's really a thing anymore. That's what I mean. Everyone, everyone wants to be famous. Truthfully, I didn't want to be famous when I started playing music. I wanted to play my guitar. I wanted to play my guitar all day and all night, and then do it with friends, and then do it all the time with friends. And that was my drive. Like, it had nothing to do with being famous. Sure, you want to be a rock star because Eddie Van Halen was a rock star, or Randy Rhoads, or whoever the hell I was listening to at the time. But it really wasn't about that. It truly was about the music. And I don't know that it is so much anymore. And I mean, again, that's a blanket statement. Of course, there's people that it's only about the music. It's all about the music. But, you know, there's also the rest of the world too.
Well, what is a rock star now? Because a rock star, you can reach out to on Instagram and they may get back to you. That never happened. You used to have to write letters and all that stuff. And it was you guys, in Japan, one of the greatest countries in the planet for fan club stuff. Like, how many letters do you have to respond to? How many times you got to email a letter or not email, like send a letter? That's okay. We like dogs.
Yeah, they're going crazy though. We're having painting done upstairs, and they've been cooped up down here for a while. So
that's fine. But it's funny to kind of have that sort of like side. Go ahead, no problem. As Pete goes to his dogs and all the rest of it, I want to send a shout out to my friends at Fit On Tour right now, who definitely, when I'm out here on tour and I'm doing stuff, these guys keep me in check. When I'll go for a run, I'll go for something. A big shout out to my friends over at Fit On Tour that while I'm out here on tour are keeping me on the straight and narrow and all the rest of it. Check them out on Instagram. Great people over there, looking out for people in my business and my industry as I try to stay as healthy as I can on tour and out there. So a big shout out to them and a huge thanks to them for all their support over the time. So anyways, back to Pete. Now that he's got the dogs settled down. You know what I mean?
Oh, doggy madness. Get a dog, they said. It'll be
fun,
right.
Yeah, that's what they say. Okay, so moving ahead, I know you gotta, we're gonna roll out of here in a bit, but so speaking about getting in the van, I mean, you got to get in the van again.
Well,
you got smoking, you got Smoking Ashes, which basically is you have to start up from I want to say scratch, but in essence, it's the first. You're getting back into it. You're launching a brand new band. You got to go through the whole thing. Your reputation will take you as far as it'll take you. But at the end of the day, you got to have the songs and you got to have the willingness to get out there and do it. So what's this like, trying to break a new band and get into it?
Well, it's been convoluted, obviously, by COVID. I mean, Aaron and I started writing for this last April. And really, the only plan I had the idea for High on Sunday kicking around for a long time, and Aaron and I bonded over the weed thing. So I was like, hey, well, we were going to write a song together. I was going to write a song with him for my solo project. Yeah. And then we wrote High on Sunday, and we were like, oh, this is good. I want to do it. And he's like, yeah, I want to do it too. Well, why don't we do it together? We just thought we would do an Aaron Allen featuring me, and that would be a way to introduce me as an artist. Yeah. And then we were like, yeah, well, what are you doing next week? Well, let's write another one. So we wrote another song. We're like, this is cool, man. There's something going on here like this. And we wrote 6 songs in 6 weeks, 7 songs in 7 weeks. And that was it. And then, but unfortunately, because of COVID and everything, we had planned on kind of being where we are now. Like last October, we were going to rehearse the band. We were going to start playing. We were going to do all of that. And it's taken this long to make it happen. So, so we're just at that point now. We're putting the band together. We are starting rehearsals in a couple weeks. We're doing some stuff to get our ducks in a row business-wise and make the connections we need to make as far as, an agent, that sort of thing, to get out there and start to do some playing. And I don't really intend on, necessarily doing this the way we did when I was 21, because I don't want to get in a van, frankly. I want this to be really good. I want it to be really high end, and I want it to... we'll do what we have to do, of course. I mean, but it's not going to be an extensive touring situation. I mean, Aaron's got a career too. Like, there's a lot going on. And again, we'll do anything that makes sense. You know what I mean? But it's not going to be jumping a van, because of the band is going to be a bit of a thing, bit of a behemoth too, because there's going to be about an 8-piece band, I think, or something like that.
And that's an expensive band to take out. How did you come up with the name for Smoking Ashes? You said it's kind of weed based. Yeah.
Well, the name is not based. Funny enough, the name is not about that. The name, Aaron had the name. Aaron was starting a small label. And that was going to be the name for the label. And then when we started writing these tunes, we were like, well, yeah, this has a real angle of the weed thing. And we were talking about it. I said, well, why don't we just use Smoke and Ashes? I think that's a great name. And it works too. It's kind of the duo thing, you know, like we got a cartoon kind of motif going on for the next thing. It almost looks like Smoke and Ashes, like it's the two guys. So it was just the name worked really well. And yeah, it does. It plays into the whole weed angle that we are definitely leaning into that. Because hey, why not, man? That's what's going on out there. And we're both quite honestly weed heads and have been, well, I have been my whole life. I mean, and you know, as far as I'm concerned, it's been nothing but a marvelous thing in my life. And I know a lot of people who feel the same way now. And now that it's legal, it's like, yeah, man, we're going to lean into it.
It's funny because when you talk about branding and all the rest of it, it's a great name, Smoke and Ashes, absolutely. But if it was way earlier, like out of the 80s into the 90s, and you were called this, people would be like, which one is Smoke and which one is Ashes?
Exactly.
Which one? Yeah, that's right. Which one's Smoke? Which one's Ashes? And then, you know, your videos are like, you know, it's actually kind of funny because you could almost be like, hey, Smoke, come over here. Okay, Ashes, I'm coming. You know, that was what was happening then. It was like,
oh my God,
it was branding and it was all the rest of it. But so you know, that space, you want to go at an 8-piece band, you know, which is going to have its own kind of thing. But you know, have you looked into like how many shows have you guys played right now versus like full tour, being able to jump onto something and do it?
We haven't even rehearsed.
Yet. So it's all strictly music right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. This has all just been a recording project over the last year, basically. So, no, this will be Aaron and I just got into a room the first time a couple months ago and actually played the songs together, just the two of us for the first time. So that was kind of fun. But yeah, it's, I'm really looking forward to kind of putting it all together. It's really just, it's a fun thing. And it's like, the music is lighthearted and I get to sing, which I love. And it's country because it's in my range. It's great. I love working with Aaron. I've played on a bunch of Aaron's stuff since he's been working with Jeff. And so we were hyper connected anyway. So it makes perfect sense. And I get to do it with a buddy and it's great. It's really going to be fun, I think.
It's a different take for you. You know, I'm sure like as you go into that genre, like, I mean, what makes a good country song for you? Because there's various versions of country right now. You've got, you know, there's still Garth out touring. You've got Chris Stapleton that's kind of in a more traditional sense. You've got Dallas that's kind of, you know, to me, I think that like the new country and that, you know, people call it bro country. They call it whatever the hell they want to, but it really has roots out of that 80s and 90s, you know, genre of music, because there's a lot of, I find a comparison very, very comparable at that time. Some of those bands are, you know, there seems to be a bit of a formula in that new country. So where does Smoke and Ashes live? Do they live in that traditional, or are they living in the sort of like new kind of country, or are you trying to even define it and just make music?
Yeah, you know what? That's really what it is. I'm not trying to define it at all because it's just the way I'm producing it. So it's the way I'm hearing it. Right. I think it's way more traditional than it is pop, but it has pop elements. So I think it can live potentially beside what's going on right now and not sound, anyway, I'm told it sounds contemporary. So I think it sounds contemporary, but it's all a nod back to other music that we like I said, the Eagles and again, not comparing us to that, but you know what I mean? That's the kind of stuff we like, that we love. We want to evoke like that remember, I don't know if you saw the Eagles documentary, but there was something that Glenn Fry said in that. And he was talking about the Eagles and how when they came out, it was right after the Vietnam War and all that. And again, not to compare in any way our situation, but the idea of it, like the world just went through all kinds of shit, you know, the pandemic's over, all that stuff. Smoke and Ashes is just about road tripping, good time, vacation, smoking weed, hanging with your friends, loving life, loving music. And that's what we want to put across. That's why I want to do a big band. That's why we talked about, you know, we're potentially talking about 2 drummers. We're talking about having, you know, the extra instruments. And I want it to be like a friggin' kitchen party on stage in a way, you know what I mean? Kind of like evoke some of what the jam bands do, like the Fish and the Grateful Dead. But some of what they do, maybe musically, just some of what they're the feel, but with music that's a little more, you know, what I want to do, what Aaron and I want to do, like right down the middle kind of stuff.
I think you know, the jammy and all the rest of it and showing off the musical your licks and all the rest of it, and how you can actually play is a lost art right now. I always love it when a band goes down that road and still does it. I don't see it very much because everything is to click now, or everything is got playback and they got this and that. So if playback goes down, you're like, somebody jam. Well, we can't jam because it might start back up again in 45 seconds. And it's like, I just feel like some of the personality of some of the bands is being lost with new tech. But also the way technology is happening with the way bands are recorded and the way people get it on film and all the rest of it, that now more than ever, if you have a bad show and you don't line up properly, or your click goes or the playback goes down, these bands are suffering because it's like, well, you just proved that you guys can't really play, or you're not really prepped for just a bunch. I just watched McCartney the other night at BBC, and he's still got all of his monitors and everything. There's all these bands, like I always love a band that's, I love a band that's not on in-ears, even though I respect the in-ear process. I love it when, or at the very least, a band that will go ahead and just jam away and just show off their talents and stuff. I will always gravitate to a band like that.
Well,
all day.
And I mean, I think I think we're showing kind of the era we come from in a way when we say that, and I 100% feel that way. And we're not playing to track. That's why I want to get a bigger band, and I want to feel like I want to be able to just veer off and jam parts out. Not that our music is jammy, because it's not, but for a live show, that's where the fun happens.
That's where the fun happens. Yeah.
Drop in the classic cover that has an extended middle section where everyone solos. Zach Brown Band is another example of a band. I toured with the Stellas, and we opened for Zach in Canada on a bunch of shows. And man, I watched them every night, and it was so inspiring, because that is a whole bunch of guys that just got on stage and made unbelievable music night after night. It was just this massive party, and I want to do a little version of that.
Well, I appreciate the time, man. On this show, it's been a while putting it together, and it's also a little bit difficult for me to maintain a regular schedule right now with my touring schedule. So I understand your schedule, and I appreciate the time that you've made today to come on and tell a little bit of the story. Unbeknownst to you, watching you come into that Long McQuaid, watching you and Darren come into that Long McQuaid. We didn't see Harry much. Harry would come in every now and again, but watching you guys come in, you always made time for everybody. You always were talking to everybody. And for somebody like me at 14, 15, 16, as I'm looking at trying to get in, and you got an artist that's in your town that has made it and is coming in and making time for guys like me, it really helped. It really it furthered along my choice to go down this path. So
I'm sorry.
Hey man, hey, listen,
I mean, that's cool.
I'm making a career. I'm doing it. This is my career, and I'm traveling the world, and I get to run concerts. It's all I've ever wanted to do. So
at a very high level.
Sure, but unbeknownst to you until probably just now, but I need you to know that you've played a role in that, and that all these shows that I'm doing around here and doing around the world and all the rest of it, there's a piece of that Long McQuaid time here with me, because it helped me push it ahead. So I thank you for that. I thank you for being cordial and awesome to everyone that would come into the store, whether you liked them or not. You would always make time for everybody, and that was a great place to hang and chill. And I wish you all the best with the new act, Smoke and Ashes. Look for Pete Lesperance out there. Look for them live. I can't wait to get the info about when you're going to pull off your first show and do all the rest of it. And just one of the great ones in the business, man. So thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Brad. I really appreciate it, man. It's been great chatting with you.
Where can we find you online and all the rest of it?
I am on Facebook. I am on Instagram. I am on TikTok. I don't go on Twitter, but I have a Twitter account. I do dribs and drabs of it. I'm terrible with that shit. I do what I can,
Awesome, man. Stick around for a minute. I'm just going to wrap this up. And that's Pete Lesperance. Go find him online, everybody. One of the gems of our business. And I appreciate the time, dude. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brent.
That's Pete Lesperance. That's another episode of the Brenton On Tour podcast for another week. That's the Making It series. I have to say thank you. A big shout out thanks to my friends at Partake. So now that I'm not drinking, obviously, on tour, or in life. These guys have created an incredible, um, series of beers: blonde, pale, IPA, red, and stout, amongst others, including a Radler and a whole bunch of different ones. But they taste great. They're 10 calories, all the rest of it, and they have been a big supporter of my show. And they've just re-upped, and I can't thank them enough. So they're back on board. So thanks to my friends at Partake for keeping me, hydrated out here on tour and all the rest of it. And if you can find it anywhere, make sure you go and do that. So huge thanks to my friend Pete for jumping on board. Check out Smoke and Ashes. Check out Harem Scarem. It's great stuff. Monster Records and monster guitar player. This is the Brenton On Tour podcast for another week, everybody. I'll be back with another Making It or a Sober on Tour. I'm getting some requests for coffee to come back, so there's a few things in the can, but we'll see you when that happens. Thanks, everybody.